What's up, everyone, and welcome back to SCO Buff Sports Live Show. I'm Balin Weisup.
And I'm Brittany Garcia, and we got a great show coming up, so let's jump right in.
Colorado women's basketball continued their season yesterday, facing off against Southeastern Louisiana in the first round of the WBIT. The Buffs handled the Lady Tigers, beating them 71-43. Here's Mia Driscoll with the recap of the game.
Hey Buff fans, you're here with Mia Driscoll and SCO Buff Sports. The Colorado women's basketball team just got a huge victory over Southeastern Louisiana in the first round of the WBIT tournament. The number one seeded Buffs got a 30-point win, 73-41, with 4 Buffs in double figures, led by Lior Garzon with 18 points. Jade Masigayo added 3 monster blocks. And you can look to see Colorado continue their postseason run on this Sunday, March 23rd at 1 p.m. right here in the CU Event Center. Let's pack it and get the crowd loud. Go!
Women's Hoops now faces Gonzaga in the second round of the tournament. In the Zags' first round game of the WBIT, they beat University of Texas San Antonio 67-51. However, they have to travel to the CU Event Center, where the Buffs stout a 15-2 record at home. Colorado will have to watch out for Gonzaga's Yvonne E. Jim, who was the West Coast Conference Player of the Year, averaging 20 points and 9 rebounds a game.
The second round of the WBIT tournament is set. Virginia Tech, Texas Tech, UNLV, and Missouri all dominated in their first round matchups. Minnesota, Marquette, James Madison, and Pennsylvania all advanced as well. Northern Arizona pulled off a huge upset against in-state rival Arizona, and a transcontinental matchup will take place as Seton Hall and Portland square off in Newark.
Amongst the postseason play, J.R. Payne's squad added another recruit. Issa Himalayan is an international player from Luxembourg and announced that she is joining the Buffs this fall. The 6'2" guard is the 5th member of the 2025 freshman class.
After the Big 12 tournament, it appeared that Colorado's season had come to an end. But new life has been sprung into the Buffs with their bid to the CBB Crown. It's the Crown's inaugural season and features a 16-team bracket considered a Tier 3 event. The Crown invites teams on the fringe of March Madness. The late season push propelled Colorado into its selection, but some ties between Fox have also helped. Oliver Hayes and Leo Rivera IV will break down the Crown shortly.
Tad Boyle's squad heads to Sin City to face Villanova in the first round of the Crown. Nova just fired their head coach after finishing their season with a 19-14 record. The Wildcats lost in the Big East tournament to UConn, and Colorado will be without players like Andrei Yakimowski for the tournament. The Buffs in the past few weeks have turned it on, winning a few games late in the year.
Welcome to this week's edition of Buff Banner. My name is Oliver Hayes alongside Leo Rivera. And we were just in Kansas City for the Big 12 men's basketball tournament where we saw the Colorado Buffaloes reach the quarterfinal after winning 2 games. It was very exciting, but we thought it was the end of their season after losing to Houston in that quarterfinal round. But then we found out about the College Basketball Crown, a first-year tournament that includes 16 teams. It will tip off on March 31st. The Buffs play on April 1st against Villanova. But Leo, I was surprised. Tad Boyle said he was shocked, kind of shocked. What were your thoughts when you saw the news?
You know, I think the entire Colorado Buffalo fan base was shocked when they woke up to see the news that this season was extending. And, you know, I think first and foremost, people are going to look at the record. They're going to look at the conference record and be like, why is Colorado deserving to play in this? But I think you have to look at the body of work, especially over the stretch of the last 4 weeks. You know, in the last end of the season, Colorado really started picking it up. They got a bulk of their conference wins in those last, 2 weeks of play. And even heading into the tournament, they were the underdog in both those games. They played a team in West Virginia that some people felt was a fringe team or a team that deserved to be in March Madness that didn't get in. They went in there and they beat them and took Houston to one of the more closer games that we saw throughout that entire Big 12 tournament, and especially considering how dominant Houston's been on that defensive end. I think it opened a lot of the eyes of, basketball fans and the people who are watching of the potential that this Colorado roster has, especially being so young. We've talked about a lot of the different core players, and that really stood out in this run, as well as the senior leadership from the squad.
Yeah, definitely. You bring up a lot of good points. I think we need to talk a little bit more about the end of that season and why they made this tournament. Tad talked about Rick George's relations with Fox Sports, who's one of the contributors to putting on this tournament. In the Big 12, they also have some automatic bids to this tournament as well. So there were some reasons why Colorado got into there. But one of those things, Tad talked about how well they played at the end of the season. But looking at this tournament, it's labeled a third-tier tournament. It's not obviously not March Madness. It's something new. It's something we haven't seen. And people want to hear how Tad Boyle is attacking this. So he talked to the media on Tuesday, I believe it was.
Yes, he did.
So we can take a look at this right now.
But I'm looking at it in two ways. Number one, giving our seniors that want to play a chance to continue to play, but also use it as a springboard into next year with the returning players. And that's, to me, that's what I'm excited about. And I always say if I'm not excited at the beginning of the season, if I'm not excited at the end of the season for next season, it's time for me to get out. And but I'm not there. I'm excited.
He brings up some points that J.R. Payne brought up when looking at the women's basketball NIT version and, talking about springboarding into next season. And, we saw some big performances from Felix Casares specifically in the Big 12 tournament. But before we get into the Big 12 tournament, he mentioned some players are going to be out. What are you thinking this roster will look like, potentially with Julian Hammond potentially being out, Sebastian Ranchik being out, and, Felix Casares, some of the young guys, R.J. Smith, Ben Dak. What are you thinking that those guys can bring to this tournament, how they can jump into this offseason and into next season even?
Most definitely in this inaugural season, again, Coach Tad Boyle brought up a lot of great points that this is going to be a springboard. Not only that, you kind of see 5 freshmen waiting their wings of this upcoming class that's supposed to be pretty deep. So what do you got to do if you're these Bengot Dak type players, right? You got to come in and you got to prove that this is your team moving forward. You got to put effort in on defense. You got to put effort in on offense. And what you really want to see is consistency, Oliver, because that's something that this team has lacked. And Coach Boyle talked about that towards the end of the season, is that each guy has had their moments throughout the season. Each guy has shown flash and had bits and pieces in games of why they can be, the stars that have been recruited to Colorado for a reason. But can they put it all together? And when you talk about Julian Hammond potentially being out, and Ranchik dealing with his injuries, probably not going to play this tournament if we're being realistic and looking at it. These young guys are going to have to step up. And like you said, Felix Casares had an absolutely amazing tournament. Probably, outside of Andrei Yakimovsky, I would say arguably he was the best tournament for the Buffs players just based on his defense, his energy, the minutes he actually got.
And his scoring.
Yes,
and his season high 25
and
points.
his scoring, exactly. And, just his presence on the court, he made it so that Coach Boyle could not pull him off. And I think that's what he's going to want to see out of these young guys is, are they going to be able to go in, accept their role, and make shots fall? And I think we're in for an exciting tournament.
Yeah, I think so too, because when you look at that Big 12 tournament, Andrei Yakimovsky, like you said, he played really well. He had the season-high 25 points in that loss to Houston, but he had 18 points and 7 rebounds against TCU, shot the ball well the whole tournament after, an inconsistent year. And even though he won't be back next year, it's his final collegiate season, and they're trying. Tad wants to springboard in the next season with his younger guys. He mentioned that he wants his seniors to have that chance to play. And knowing Andre, I think I know that he'll play.
Yes.
But Tad brought up the character that this team showed down the stretch this season. When Kelvin Sampson came to this U event center, when he talked after beating Colorado in the Big 12 championship, he commended Colorado's effort and character down the stretch this season, despite the conference record that you brought up. And it's very important that they show out and continue to bring this competitiveness, because there's 4 other Big 12 teams in this tournament.
Yes.
The Buffs, they need to show recruits that they're still serious. They're still trying to compete in March. They're still trying to develop guys, and I think that's something that they can definitely do. Tad brings up some good points. They're going to be looking. The offseason has already somewhat begun as far as recruiting, but. Yeah, I think that's all I can think of as far as looking at the CBC. If you have any last thoughts.
Yeah, this is obviously the first time that this tournament has been in effect. So who knows? Maybe we can talk about in 10 years that this is some big, substantial, Tier 3 tournament that teams are looking to get in if they don't make March Madness. But that we're going to have to wait and see. I think Colorado, though, is going to need to come out and get more than just 2 wins in this tournament if they want to prove that they really are a 1 seed and that they can compete and draw attention to the school and help them springboard into next year.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's all for this week's edition of Buff Banner. My name's Oliver Hayes alongside Leo Rivera, and thank you for tuning in.
This offseason, Coach Prime is continuing to add NFL experience to his coaching staff. NFL veteran Byron Leftwich will join Pat Shurmur in developing CU's next quarterbacks. In his decade-long playing career, Leftwich threw for over 10,000 passing yards. 4 years ago, he called plays for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, leading them to their Super Bowl 55 victory. Leftwich is the latest addition to the coaching staff, but Coach Prime says he will not be the last.
CU just announced their spring game details for this year. The Buffs will hit Folsom Field again on Saturday, April 19th at 2:30 in their black and gold scrimmage. You can buy tickets to the scrimmage on CU Football's website, or you can catch it on ESPN2.
NFL scouts finally have a date to evaluate Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter after the two didn't participate in any combine drills. The Buffs announced this week that on April 4th they will hold their pro day. All 32 teams from the NFL are expected to be there to evaluate all of Colorado's players who have declared for the draft. The 4th will give Buff fans one last chance to see some of their favorite players before they head off to the NFL.
Former two-time second All-Pac-12 cornerback Chidobe Awuzie was released by the Tennessee Titans earlier this week. The Colorado legend only appeared in 3 games for the Titans, but was one of the highest-paid players on the team. As a Buff, Awuzie was one of the best defensive players in school history. The cornerback has played 8 seasons in the league so far and has suited up for the Cowboys and Bengals as of right now. No team has signed Awuzie, but reports have them linked to a reunion with either of his former squads.
It'll be a Buffaloes reunion in Los Angeles as another CU alum, Akello Witherspoon, has also signed a 1-year contract with the Los Angeles Rams. The Forever Buff spent the 2023 and 24 season with the Rams, but he was assigned to the practice squad in October, only seeing 9 games this past season. With his new contract, the veteran cornerback is expected to stay on the 55-man roster come September. You could say him and Chidobe are the only Buffaloes right now that are proud to be a Ram.
On some better alumni news, Nate Landman signed a 1-year deal with the LA Rams Tuesday. Landman was not tendered by the Atlanta Falcons at the beginning of free agency, making him a non-restricted free agent. The linebacker spent the last 3 seasons in Atlanta and tallied 192 tackles and 3 sacks and 6 forced fumbles.
The women's lacrosse team hosted the Iona Gales on Saturday in their first game played at Prentup Field. It was a dominant first half for the Black and Gold, who put 11 goals on the board. Freshman goaltender Elena O was a brick wall yet again, allowing 0 goals in that first half. Here's Kieran Warger with the recap.
Hey Buff fans, I'm Kieran Warger coming to you from Prentup Field after the Colorado women's lacrosse team just dropped a banger of a game against the Iona Gales. Final score of 12-4, an absolutely dominant first half for Colorado. And Maddie Shoup with a hat trick today, only hat trick for her team thus far today, but still nonetheless a great thing to see. And she got that opening goal for her Buffs team. Madeline Pisani, Lilia Cassini, they had 2 goals on the day as well. So an absolutely dominant first half. Going into the second, Iona tried to respond with an early goal by Kaylin Norton, and she had 2 on the day as well. But unfortunately, they just couldn't hold up against this Tufts Buffs defense, who rode that game out all the way to the end. Looking ahead, they play Stony Brook coming up next week, so we will have the information on that, where it will be taking place in the coming days. So thank you all for tuning in. With Scobuff Sports, I'm Kieran Warger.
Last night, Anne Elliott Wyndon's squad returned to Prentup for a highly anticipated matchup against number 18 Stony Brook. The match was a thriller as the Seawolves putting the first points on the board, courtesy of Riley McDonald. Graduate attacker Madeline Bassani recorded her 3rd hat trick of the season. The Buffs kept the score in their favor for their first 3 quarters, not allowing a single goal in the 3rd. A late comeback attempt by the Seawolves proved ineffective as the Buffs walked away with a 7-6 upset.
Last week, Colorado lacrosse brought home 2 Big 12 awards. Defender Matt Hamlin tallied 6 ground balls and 4 turnovers forced against Marquette and Iona, winning the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week. Elena O said no to 55% of shots that went in. on her goal in those games, securing goalkeeper of the week as well. The pair made a massive impact in CU's defensive, gritty win over Stony Brook on Thursday.
Women's lacrosse hits the road this week, facing Dartmouth to start a 2-game road trip. The Buffs played the Big Green at a neutral site in Houston on Sunday. The Buffs look to extend their 3-game win streak. Dartmouth is coming off a dominant win against Arizona State, 20-10.
The Buffs finished their road trip in a conference matchup against San Diego State. This will be the first conference game for both squads. The Aztecs hold a 5-4 record. However, SDSU has struggled this year at home with a 1-3 record.
With the Lax team in a beautiful Houston and San Diego for break, let's take you to this week's weather report.
Welcome back to this week's weather report. I'm Xavier McNevitz. It's been a windy week here in Boca, windy and kind of chilly, but women's lacrosse doesn't have to worry about that as they hit the road to face Dartmouth and San Diego State this week. Against Dartmouth, they actually are going to Houston instead of Hanover, New Hampshire, and in Houston it's going to be pretty nice weather as by first draw it's going to be 77 degrees and at halftime 80 degrees, and it's going to stay 80 degrees up until final time at 8:15 or at 4:15. Again, San Diego State, however, it's going to be a little chilly, a little cloudy, as at first draw it's going to be 66 degrees, and at halftime 66, it's going to stay 66, and then 65 by the end of the game with a little bit of cloud coverage over there. Women's lacrosse is coming off a nice upset win against Stony Brook, the number 18 ranked team, and we'll see if they can continue to win on the road. I'm Xavier McNevitz with this week's weather report. Back to you guys at the desk.
The tennis team has yet to win a conference game. They'll get a chance today as the team plays number 17 ranked UCF. This will be yet another tough matchup that will wrap up what has been a brutal stretch of away games. Last weekend, they fell to number 20 ranked Baylor and number 44 ranked TCU. On Sunday, they're back at home facing off against Houston.
The track and field team began their outdoor season today. They are in the middle of a 2-day meet hosted by Colorado State University Pueblo, and a great track and a packed meet will give our Buffs the opportunity to start the season hot. In other news, assistant coach Lindsay Malone has been named to be a part of Team USA's coaching staff for the 2025 World Athletics Indoor Championship. She'll oversee the men's heptathlon, high jump, pole jump, long jump, and triple jump.
The men's golf team is gearing up for the Wally Goodwin Intercollegiate in Palo Alto, California. The first round will be played on Thursday, with the final rounds being played on Friday and Saturday. Colorado is currently ranked 32nd in the nation and looks to keep moving up headed into the Big 12 Championship. Including their upcoming tournament, all 4 events the Buffs have played in this spring have been hosted in California. Hopefully, the familiarity will help Colorado claim another podium finish.
The women's golf squad, meanwhile, placed 9th at the Betsy Roll Longhorn Invitational. The team was led by Maria Edhagen Haroch. The seniors sat in the 3rd place individually, heading into the 3rd round. An unfortunate round dropped Haroch to 16th overall on the individual podium. Junior Morgan Miller had a hole-in-one on the 2nd hole of round 2. The Buffs had one more tournament before the Big 12 Championship. Read more about the Buffs in Austin on our website.
Welcome to Folsom Feud. I'm your host, Colby, here with 3 contestants today, Lincoln, Balin, and Kieran. Lincoln, start us off.
I'll take game day etiquette for 200.
All right. This is the best way to show respect during the CU fight song.
What is standing, singing loud, and raising your hand in the hook 'em horn sign?
Not what we're looking for. Balin, you have an answer?
What is stand up, sing loud, and do the Ralphie horns?
Correct. Balin, the board is yours.
Give me tailgate traditions for 400.
All right, here's the answer. The must-have item to wear on game day to show your Buff pride. Kieran?
What is black and gold?
That's correct. Nothing says school spirit like those 2 colors. Choose the next one.
Let's do fan etiquette for 600.
Fan etiquette. The proper response when you hear someone yell, "Go Buffs."
What is skull, Buffs?
Skull Buffs is right. Looks like we've got some true Buffs fans here. But thank you all for tuning in. Thank you to our contestants, and see you next time.
The soccer team returned to Prentup to face the Calgary Wild, a pro-Canadian club from the newly formed Northern Super League. Although the Buffs didn't leave with the win, they were able to hold their own against the pro side. Colorado had a very good outing that was highlighted by Faith Libia's stunning bicycle kick goal in the 73rd minute. CU will play its 4th spring game of the season against BYU at Prentup Field on April 5th.
The club baseball team marched into Colorado Springs for a 3-game series against the Air Force Falcons. The club nearly swept the Falcons, winning Game 1 by 5 and putting up 18 runs in Game 2. The Buffs lost in Game 3 in extra innings 7-5, but the series win brings their record to an even 5-5, holding 4 conference wins.
And that brings us to this week's trivia question. Although the club team is killing it, back in the 1980s, Colorado had a Division I baseball team and even sent a handful of players to the show. This week we ask you, who was the last CU alum to record a hit in the major leagues? Stick around because we'll have the answer coming up shortly after the break.
After a trip to Boise, the men's lacrosse team walked away with a weekend split. Saturday's matchup against Simon Fraser was a thriller indeed. The Buffs dominated the first quarter, putting up 4 goals, allowing the Red Leaves only 1. Colorado Mike Kulowski was instrumental in the face-off circle once again, winning 20 out of 26 draws. The Red Leaves responded in the second half, defeating the Black and Gold 12-11. Sunday saw a matchup against Boise State at their home field. It was another thriller as the Broncos and the Buffs were neck and neck the entire game. Colorado pulled through in the fourth quarter, putting up 5 goals. The Buffs walked away with a close 14-13 victory.
It wasn't a busy week for sports, but we still have Kieran Warger with this week's Play of the Week. Take it away, Kieran.
Hey, Buff fans, I'm Kieran Warger bringing you this week's top 3 plays in Colorado sports. We didn't have a whole lot for you this week as we are heading into spring break on Monday here at CU. But we have still had some plays that need to be mentioned, so we're going to get right into it, starting off with our number 3 spot, women's basketball in round 1 of the WBIT tournament. Jade Masagaya running up the floor and lays it up with the right hand. What a beauty there as we go into our number 2 spot here. Women's lacrosse against number 18 Stony Brook. Huge upset here, by the way. Play is started, and Elena O makes a fantastic save and keeps the game scoreless at the 5-minute mark in the first quarter. Going to our number 1 spot, folks. If this is a Big 12 play of the week, I don't know what is. Faith Leba bicycle kicks this one in against Calgary FC. Unfortunately, that game didn't go the way they wanted to, but that was still an electric goal, to say the least. Those scrimmages are a lot of fun to cover and to watch. But that's going to do it here for our very short play of the week this week here on Skill Buff Sports. I'm Kieran Warger, wishing you all a wonderful spring break.
Here we see Xavier McNevitz working on his reader for the live show. If we didn't have these readers done by Thursday night, chances are we would not be airing this show right now. Be like Xavier. Get your readers done. And don't forget to click save so that you don't lose any of your hard-earned work.
Hi Buff fans, I'm Lucy Alanya and welcome back to another Rapid Fire. Let's take a look at the athletic lineup for this weekend. Starting tonight with a home game at 6 p.m., our tennis Buffs will be ready for a match against number 17 UCF at the Meadows Club here in Boulder. The track team is kicking off their first outdoor meet of the season today at CSU Pueblo, and they will continue their debut for day 2 on Saturday. Moving on to Sunday, the women's lacrosse team will be in Houston playing Dartmouth at 11 a.m. Moving on to Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m., tennis will be matching up against the University of Houston at home. Go out and support and go Buffs.
Thanks, Lucy. It's now time to reveal the answer to this week's trivia question. Just moments ago, we asked you who was the last Colorado alum to record a hit in the Major League Baseball. The answer is, please, drumroll please, Jay Howell, and a lot more recently than you think. He was last recorded a hit in 1994 for the Texas Rangers. Howell stayed local on his way to the pros, attending Fairview High School and the University of Colorado right here in Boulder, before his 3 All-Star and 1988 World Series winning career in the show.
Now, for this week's Tweet of the Week, we actually head to the Mountain State, days after the Mountaineers lost to the last-seeded Colorado Buffaloes in the Big 12 tournament. West Virginia Governor Patrick Morrisey held a press conference to discuss the WVU snub from the national tournament, calling the NCAA a corrupt and taking shots at schools who received March Madness bids. Governor Morrisey's rant went for over 20 minutes. Here's a short clip.
Now, knowing that West Virginia was out in front suing in 2023, and here we are, an NCAA, I don't know what's going on. Is this retribution? We're going to have to get to the bottom of that. Today, I'm joined here with our Attorney General. He's the Chief Legal Officer for the state. And I've asked Attorney General McCuskey to launch an investigation into the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee to determine if any backroom deals, corruption, bribes, or any nefarious activity occurred during the selection process. I know that the Attorney General and I are going to leave no stone unturned during this process. We need to get to the bottom of it. I think a lot of Americans count on the fact that there's transparency and that there's fairness when dealing with selection, whether you're talking about college football playoffs, remember what happened to Florida State a couple years ago, or when it comes to March Madness. Those are basic things that all Americans deserve. But I want to make sure that we're standing up. We're going to get to the bottom of what happened. We want those objective criteria, and I'm now pleased to turn over to
Morrisey ultimately announced he will be taking action against the NCAA for their decision to leave out the 19-13 Mountaineers. Knowing this is a case of losing to a 3-win conference squad, Colorado squad, Boulder has sat back and enjoyed.
Well, that's all we have for this week.
If you enjoyed this week's show and want to come back for more, you should like and subscribe.
Again, I'm Brittany Garcia.
And I'm Balin Weisup.
And
you heard it here first.